to understand the terminology associated with this particular case, basically indigenous knowledge, innovations, technology, as well as science outcomes. When we talk about technology, we are referring to the digital house in this era. Basically, it emphasizes application of scientific knowledge to develop innovative digital tools that can be implemented in order to improve services and achieve better outcomes. This is what we call a cycle of digital health innovation. The second thing is indigenous knowledge. So what is this indigenous knowledge? We all know that every community has been living within their own resources and taking care of their health needs, even before orthodox medicine. So that is what we are referring to indigenous knowledge. In essence, we are talking about cultural wisdom, which is accumulated knowledge passed down through generations. We are talking about traditional medicine, meaning healing practices rooted in local traditions and crafts. Healing practices meaning rituals and methods for both physical as well as spiritual healing, as well as community collaborations, talking about collaborative strategies for collective health and support. All this has been happening for the efforts of orthodox medicine to keep the community healthy. That is what we are referring to indigenous knowledge in this regard. Integration. Now that we understand the digital health cycle, we also understand indigenous knowledge. What do we mean by integrating the two? In order, what we are referring to is to create a synergy between the two, meaning we use the modern tools and systems, integrating traditional wisdom and practices for enhanced health outcomes. What are these health outcomes? Health outcomes here we are referring to, we have a problem. What is the problem? The problem here is poor health. Why? We have high system body, we have low life expectancy. What do? We use technology and other innovative systems in order to intervene in our healthcare system to address those problems. One, poor the high rate of disease and overall low life expectancy. How do we do that? We establish policies, we also give enabling environment for the implementation of those innovative ideas. If we do that, we improve healthcare delivery services and overall improve health system. This is the health outcomes we are referring to. So initially, we talk about digital health cycle, we talk about indigenous knowledge, we talk about integrating the two, and now we talk about the outcomes. So let's go into our challenges and see. I have a scenario. Imagine a young mother in a village in Yaro, don't mind the mention of Yaro here. Imagine a young mother in a village in Yaro, her child has a high fever. Her first course is not the primary health care, which is 10 kilometers away. It's unexpected marriage where they are according to traditional religion from a local class, advised by her father, or perhaps a visit mother who come over traditional who recites some verses or and who provides some concoction for her to give her child. This is a different scenario of Congo. I strongly believe for most of us in this world, our first instinct is to see this as a problem. What is the problem? A delay in seeking unauthorized biomedical care. the northern for the people of Sokoto and Nigeria? Can we pause and ask ourselves this? Probably, imagine this, how to treat fever. The first thing that comes to you and me, please take your child to the nearest health facility, right? Private health center. You can travel there, maybe just a few kilometers, a few minutes away from your home, few kilometers also. That is what will come to our mind, probably. But you should know that traditional remedies exist, which implies use of local remedies advised by parents that is within the home, or the traditional healer sites where you want to be the Bala, the Babala, or the traditional healer. All these things exist in our environment and beyond, but how do we look at them? We have a problem, as mentioned earlier, delay is here. But we should sit down and ask ourselves, what is other settings also at home? How can we combine indigenous knowledge and technology in order to make our health effective, increasing accessibility and addressing cultural sensitivity? Yes, we have a problem. What is the problem? High disease overwhelm our existing healthcare system. We know that. Number two, we have social-cultural factors, including age, poverty, that affects acceptance of orthodox medicine. Also, we have limited access to orthodox medicine and infrastructures that affects delivery. This is a challenge, and these are not only root causes. These are not only root causes. There are several other factors. However, we have a lot of assets. Among which this asset is indigenous knowledge. It's the centuries of local herbs and health practices knowledge that is existing. Two, we have community structures. We have a respect for elders and traditional community institutions still existing, even with the current trends of technology and social media and what have you. We also have an increasingly a high mobile phone penetration driving digital revolution in this country. These are assets that can definitely be used in order to improve our health system. Additional assets we have is this. We have land with bioactive compounds for health benefits. We have techniques ensuring safe childbirth and postnatal care even before now. What we call the moves from all the traditional birth attendants. We also have nutrient foods, aiding recovery and health within our environment. We have the zogale and some other food items, the ugu and so on and so forth. These are food items that can improve healing in our system. This is what we call traditional midwifery diet practice with all the assets for improving community health. However, there are challenges. This plenty of assets we have are unstandardized, unstructured, and unfortunately, the indigenous knowledge is usually passed through oral tradition. That means there is every tendency that the base of the father, the knowledge, a significant amount of knowledge is missing, and will not be able to get the correct information. Usually, even the traditional leaders, they choose one or two among their children that they will pass the knowledge to, not all the children. And if for any reason something happens to the child, then the knowledge is gone. This is another asset, a very big one. The technology, mobile health, telemedicine, opportunity for data analytics, digital records, and AI machine learning as discussed by the chairman of this committee. All these are important assets for us to leverage on and make the best integration of traditional knowledge for better health outcomes. There is disconnect, a serious disconnect between the two worlds. One, lack of integration of this indigenous knowledge within our healthcare framework. There are some efforts going on in the by the Federal Ministry of Health and other organizations. However, that is still building. Number two, there is misalignment of assets. Our current existing assets are not meeting up with our system needs. This leads to overall resource underutilization, inefficient use of those assets mentioned earlier. So what do we do? I call this efficient. I have 4 suggestions of what we can use the technology to do in order to get the best of tracking indigenous knowledge. Number 1, digital documentation of this indigenous knowledge. Meaning we should create a digital database of all the local medicinal plants. Some of the stakeholders to come together to do this are pharmacologists who study medicinal properties of local plants, the pharmacists and all other people around that field, computer scientists who develop a secure digital database infrastructure for use, as well as the linguistics who will document the traditional plant knowledge using the appropriate language so that it can be utilized by all people who can have access to that database. That is number 1. Number 2, yes, the knowledge exists, but it's an unvalidated knowledge. Also, the keynote speaker mentioned that this knowledge is unvalidated. We really cannot say about the efficacy and safety of this traditional medicine being utilized, and also the administration. I'm going to make a disclaimer after this presentation anyway. They are unvalidated. What do we do? We scientists should test this traditional medicine in our lab for efficacy, efficiency, test them on patients, standardize them and make them safe, and identify potential diseases and address them. If we do that, we'll be able to get a validated remedies that are both safe and also effective, and hopefully also cheaper. Well, this is ongoing. All of us here, some students, postgraduate students, undergraduate students are doing a lot of this. But at the end of the day, most of the output will remain in the libraries, will remain in the journals where those papers are published, so the conference proceedings as we are having today. It will never get out to the policy level. The third remedy is using technology to enhance the community health workers training. We have ineffective healthcare. We have inadequate manpower. What do? We leverage on the curriculum, our medical curriculum and allied health sciences to improve our curriculum to create biomedical manpower with skills of the autonomous medicine as well as the local remedies. We can create a tablet application that will be able to support the diagnosis and referral of patients to where they can get better care. If we do this, we can get our community health are well trained, and that will also bridge the gap of the inadequate manpower and eventually effective or improve access to healthcare and improve outcomes, health outcomes. There is a problem. There is a problem. There is a serious mistrust by local people or a general public on our systems. And that is one of the reasons why some people prefer to go for orthodox medicine. systems to our first line drug. What do? We develop anti-malaria or use the local herbs to test their efficacy for anti-malaria properties. We develop applications for trial of use of these herbs. We train our healthcare workers to use both the two in the trial, and then the Ministry of Health should be able to track this and see whether what the scientists are doing is correct, and then also see that test the efficacy of those substances. When we do that, we'll be able to see that we can effectively use the traditional knowledge as well as the technology to improve our outcomes. What can the university do? College of Health Sciences. We can develop a curriculum, conduct interdisciplinary research, conduct community engagement, and be an advocate to the health policy, advising the government on integrating successful health models into our health policy. By doing that, we should stop lamenting. We should not stop lamenting, focusing on problems and difficulties. We should be thinking on how can we leverage, utilize the unique strengths, I mentioned them, our assets that are deeply rooted within our community in Sokoto and beyond, in order to integrate modern technology and innovation into our existing health system for better health outcomes. Not, in conclusion, the choice between us is not between technology and the traditional medicine. This is a false dichotomy. The future of health in Sokoto lies in a synergy of both, where a doctor respects the community's trust in a manner of Babalawo, and the manner of Babalawo knows when to depart the patient to the doctor. It lies in an application that contains the wisdom of our grandparents, validated by science we practice in our laboratories. I hear the keynote speaker also mention this, that the traditional indigenous knowledge we are referring to is not what is currently being described as traditional medicine, where orthodox medicine are used to adulterate the herbs in order to improve the efficacy of those so-called traditional medicine. We have a case, we published a paper testing some traditional medicine, and we unfortunately found them to have concussions and to have adulteration in them. Even those that were approved by NAFDAC, because the first approval follow-up is usually lacking. So I have to explain here, in the context I discussed, reading indigenous knowledge and technology does not imply combining or mixing traditional medicine with orthodox drugs as practiced by our ethical people. Instead, it refers to drawing on the strength of both systems, technology, which is modern tools, data, innovations, and indigenous knowledge, which is community practices, cultural wisdom, and health promoting behaviors, in order to improve health outcomes in a respectful and complementary way. Thank you very much.
You know, I describe him as a jihadist. So this is the type of jihad you undertake. You see, he convinced all of us why we should also respect the movement and focus. Thank you very much once again. Before we move to the next item of the agenda, my eyes caught some people in the audience. Professor AUZ is there. He trained me on how to handle occasion. So he's MC Emeritus of College. My eyes also caught the presence of Dr. Oshebu, the head of the Department of Science and Technology.